welcome to the baiting game on Bivvy TV. We're going to be talking about spring baiting, baiting tactics at that time of year. The water I'm going to be fishing next spring, I'm really excited about. I've fished there a little bit this year. It's deep, it's weedy, it's crystal clear, so I can watch what's going on, which is a huge edge. But because of the weed, keeping some spots going is so important, and keeping that bait going in. Initially, I often use a bit of party blend. I get it from a company called Particles. They've got a huge turnover of stock. It's always fresh, really good. It's got fantastic aniseed smell, nice and cheap as well. So I'll use that in bulk right at the beginning of spring to keep the weed down, get some spots really clear. From then on, I will try to introduce boilies onto the spot. This year I tried them on the solar Chinese takeaway, which is what I've been using on loads of water through all my teaching and going abroad and so on. It's a really nice soft bait. The fish can eat through it really quickly. It's got tons of attractors in there that they seem to like. And I'll use those in a mixture of sizes as I normally do. I don't always want to fish on the clear spots though, and I'll quite often fish a chod rig. I know some guys give them a real hard time. They still catch me fish, and they're a presentation that works over weed, and it being a weedy lake, I need to consider that as a presentation. So I make these corkball pop-ups myself. They're literally the base mix with a bit of egg albumin to harden it up, wrapped around a cork ball and rolled. To make sure that they don't spoil, this is a nice little trick for you. Put some rice in the bottom, just like the restaurants. So in the spring, quantities wise of bait, I'll start off with a little bit. The water will still be warming up. I'm going to be baiting in March time, going on through, and that might be 2 or 3 kilos of bait as regularly as I can. From then on, I'll be introducing more and more bait. Not when I'm fishing. When I'm fishing, I'll probably only introduce 2 or 3 handfuls. When I leave, that's when I'll put the bait in, and other visits to the lake. And I might even be putting 5 or 10 kilos in to keep those spots going. It's worked for me very well in the past. Give it a try. Should well work for you too. But that's my spring baiting tactics. Keep watching Bivvy TV and you'll see some of the tactics the other boys are employing.
Right, spring baiting. It's time of year you can start giving the fish quite a bit of bait, and you want to be able to give them a bait that they want to eat plenty of. I've got 2 that I like to use. I use the mainline cell, and I use the proactive pineapple. The only thing I do a little bit differently, I just make my own hook baits, so I can do them various sizes, various buoyancies and that type of thing, just by buying a few odd ingredients. So a little bit of egg albumin to make them hard, a little bit of pop-up mix to make them buoyant, and that's it really, and just a little bit of flavour. You can make them a little bit stronger if you want. I'm generally just quite happy as they are, and that's it for me really.
Okay, baited up in spring and what to use for hook baits. You've already seen the opinions of the other guys. My opinion is, in spring, the fish's eyesight in winter's dulled down quite considerably. Their eyesight's nowhere near as good as it is when the water's warmer. It affects their eyesight quite a lot. That's why bright baits tend to work very well in the winter. And the same happens in spring. The fish have just come out of a torpid period where they're not using as much energy, so you want to perhaps not go crazy with the bait. I don't ever really turn up and just fill the place in. It's never worked for me that. I always feel my way into the session and start off with a few different things on each rod and see what's occurring. But one thing that I've always done well on in the spring is plastic corn, and it needn't always be yellow. I'll show you an example. This colour here, which is a bit in your face, and it's much brighter than any sweet corn that you could ever get out of a tin. But I've caught loads in the spring on this, and I've fished it over boilies, over spod mix, over maggots, or in conjunction with maggots, and I've found that to be really, superb. I've also caught in the spring using plastic corn, just by itself, with no bags on it, no bait, nothing. and basically you're just cashing in on other people spreading bait around, you know, particularly on a busy day ticket water, somewhere like Linear Fisheries, St John's. And I've done great just using plastic corn, just 2 pieces on each rig, and moving it on a regular basis, perhaps leave the rod in for an hour or 2 hours and then cast to a new spot. And that way you're not committing to putting bait in the wrong place perhaps, and you can cash in on the senses of the fish waking up after the long sort of slow period. I also use some of the heavily flavoured stuff. You can get it in these little pots, different flavours, all from the best flavours really, classic flavours. These are Esther the Pineapple from Solar, cracking flavour, recommend those to you. Also, you know, there's tons of companies do fluoros. I use my own. These are the sort of typical colours that I like, and really in your face stuff, you know. The other thing that I would recommend for the spring is you can use particles. Now, by that I don't mean go putting loads of them in, you know, but you can start getting them on chopped tigers, hemp. Another one that I use a lot is groats, which you may or may not be familiar with. Well, groats gives off a big milky cloud, and it's good in cold water temperatures. And obviously in the spring, you're still getting quite cool temperatures in the water. Groats seems to have this pulling power, and it'll pull the fish down. And I've used the groats in conjunction with tiger nuts and chopped tigers, and that's been fabulous. So that's another one to think about. I mean, it's endless really, you know. A lot of people probably just want to go and use boilies, but whatever you do in the spring, I would take it easy and just do it on a little and often basis like match anglers do. But the main thing is getting your location right. Once you've got the location right, you can start working on your baiting strategy and your tactics. But you won't go far wrong, as I say, locating the fish by using various in-your-face, you know, hook baits till you locate the fish, and then you can think about putting some bait in, depend on the length of your session. So that was my take on spring fishing and baiting. So there we are.